Um, there. So a lot of you joining today, you've already taken advantage of the graduate discount, but just to bring it up, that if you're a student member who has graduated, that you can get a free transfer to graduate membership. You can make significant savings of €700 over the first 4 years of your career, so it's definitely well worth taking up. And I just wanted to give that a quick plug before we hand it over to our speakers. You can do it on your phone, very simple to do, and might be something you might want to do after tonight's webinar. To give an introduction to our three speakers all at once before I hand over to Amy, our first speaker. Amy Monahan is a structural design engineer in Arup's Dublin office. Amy graduated from DIT, which is now TU Dublin, with a first class honours in structural engineering and now works in Arup's buildings team. Since joining Arup, she's worked on projects at all stages of development from planning to construction phase, working for clients such as Diageo, Amazon and DAA. Amy also lectures part-time in TU Dublin on the BEng Tech in Civil Engineering course, and should be first speaker because she has to hop on to lecture this evening. After Amy speaks, we'll have John. John Smyth is a mechanical design engineer with Arup's graduate program in Cork. He did a Bachelor's of Engineering in Energy Engineering in UCC and a Master's of Science in Sustainable Energy Engineering in Waterford IT. And he now works as part of Arup's Building Energy and Sustainability team. He's part of the Cork Young Engineers Society, taking on the role of Public Relation Officer, PRO, in 2020. And our final speaker this evening will be Rachel Gannon. Rachel Gannon is a digital consultant in Accenture in Ireland. She has 7 years experience in project delivery. Since joining Accenture in February 2020, she has worked on the implementation and delivery of Adobe Experience Management CMS platform. She has a deep understanding of stakeholder management and project delivery. Since she joined Accenture in 2020 from Arup Consulting Engineers, where her role was digital coordinator, senior engineer, and project manager in the infrastructure and advisory group. Her previous roles were with AECOM and Ryan Hadley. Rachel is a chartered engineer and the NUIG civil engineering graduate. She received first class honours in NFQ higher level diploma in computer science as well and software development from DBS in 2018. She's a keen interest in community engagement and volunteering, hence her being here this evening. She has volunteered both in Ireland and abroad. She's passionate about encouraging STEM in the young United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And Rachel was also our CEng of the Year finalist this year. So congratulations, Rachel, on that accolade. That's kind of all 3 speakers introduced now. I'm so grateful for you all for making time this evening to speak with final year students and early career graduates about your careers. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Amy Monahan. Amy, over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. Thank you, Miho. Hopefully I have no technical difficulties here. Share. Can you see my screen?
It's looking perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm going to quickly go through and have a quick chat about Arup, where I work. So myself and John both work for Arup. I'm a structural design engineer, as Michal said, and John is a mechanical design engineer. Just to note, I can't stay for the Q&A, but my email is there. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And John's is there as well. So it's just amy.monahan@arup.com. So quick chat through Arup. So Arup was founded by Ove Arup. He was a great believer in philosophy, and a lot of his ideas and his philosophies kind of influence to this day how we work at Arup and the kind of work that we undertake. So one of his main kind of catchphrases was shaping a better world. So kind of all the projects that we carry out and all the way we work within Arup is kind of a core value that we have. And it really influences everything that we do within the firm. So Arup is kind of a is a consultancy, and it's made up of lots of different people from different backgrounds. So we have designers, planners, engineers, consultants, and technical specialists. So it's not just, you know, structural engineers, or it's not just civil engineers. It's a big house, and there's a lot of people from different backgrounds working there. So it's a really diverse place to work. It's an old company, so the first office opened 70 years ago, and now it employs over 13,000 people globally. So it is an international firm, which is really nice because it means you kind of have more opportunity to travel and move around. We have 90 plus offices across 35 different countries. So there's offices in Africa, Americas, Australasia, East Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. So in Ireland, just in particular, we have 4 offices. So there's an office in Dublin, which is where I work. John, you work in the Cork office, if I'm right.
Yeah,
and we have an office in Limerick and Galway as well. Yeah, so that's just kind of an infographic showing you how many kind of countries that we're in. So we have 92 offices across 40 countries. And then on kind of a more European view, so we're in 9 different countries in Europe with 16 offices, and there's about 1,650 staff throughout those offices. So I myself have done a couple of days in the Amsterdam office and the London office. I know some people who've worked in Madrid and Milan from the Dublin office, so you have a great opportunity to move around, which is really beneficial. If you're going away for a weekend, you can do a day somewhere else in a different office, which is always fun to do. So that's kind of an overview of ARP. Like I said, we have all the different engineering disciplines. So we have structural, geotech, mechanical, electrical, acoustic, fire, environmental, and that's really just to name a few. Like there's all specialized disciplines as well, such as maritime and blast engineering. So it's really, really broad, and a lot of the projects, I can speak for the projects that I do, I've gotten to work with engineers from different backgrounds and not just structural engineers. So that's been really, really interesting. So just a little bit about me and my background. So I'm from Kildare. I grew up in Newbridge, and then I went to Dublin for college. So I did a Bachelor in Engineering, a technical in civil engineering, which was a level 7 degree. And then I went on to do a BEng in structural engineering in which is TU Dublin now, but at the time it was DIT Bolton Street, so that's where I studied. While I was in college, I did some interning with Atkins. If I had any advice, I would say that you should intern every summer that you have, because it's a great experience. And then after that, I joined ARUP when I finished college as a design engineer. So currently I'm in the ARUP Dublin office, working with the buildings team on all structural projects mainly. And I'm also back in DIT lecturing part-time on the civil engineering part-time degree. So just a little bit about the projects that I've kind of worked on in ARUP. So my first 6 months with ARUP were very interesting, and you're kind of thrown into the deep end immediately. So I was working on a couple of different projects, some of them at planning stage, some of them at construction stage. So the one on the left-hand side here, Lusk Community College. So that is a new school that is being built out in Lusk in near Balbriggan. It's finished now at the minute, due to be handed over at the end of this month. So I kind of came onto that project when it was probably 80% of the way there, and so it finished out. Another project that I kind of saw finished out as well was the DAA air traffic control tower, which we got to do a great site visit to just when I joined ARUP, so that was a really interesting day out. And a great thing about ARP is they really want you to get out on site. Like, they don't keep you in the office with a ball and chain at your desk every day. And it's good to get out and see these things being built. One of my first kind of design projects, which was really interesting, and made me realize that there's no, structural engineering is not just buildings, and it's not just like within that box of just office blocks and, residential buildings. It's really kind of interesting projects that you never would really have thought were structural engineering. So this was a project that was part of, Brown Thomas was our client, and it was part of their unveiling of their Christmas windows. They usually have a big kind of show, and they wanted to suspend a trapeze artist from basically over Grafton Street while they were having their unveiling of the Christmas windows. So you can see just down here in the bottom right, that's the trapeze artist, and she's suspended from this truss which was put on top of the roof of Brown Thomas. So that was a really interesting project to work on, a bit of a scary one to go and watch on the day, but it was really great experience, and it made me kind of feel that like anything was possible as long as you had those fundamentals that you did in college. You could really design anything. Then another project which I didn't work on myself, but it was a team kind of beside my team that used to work on it, and we got to do a couple of site visits, and it was a very interesting job, is Boland's Quay. It's beside Boland's Mills in Grand Canal Dock area, so it's due to be the new Google headquarters, I'm pretty sure. So that was a really interesting project that was going on while I was in Arup, and again we got to go out to site quite often and see what was happening. There's a restoration of Boland's Mills as well on the left hand side here, you'll see them, which is being carried out. So it's always interesting to work on a job that's restoration. There's a lot of kind of additional things that you have to consider that you don't have to consider in a new build, and it was a good experience to see that as well. So the current projects that I'm working on, there's kind of a theme here in that they're all different, which is really cool because I'm never working on one thing alone, or I'm never just designing beams or columns day in, day out. I always have 5 or 6 things on the go, and all of those things are always different. So the top kind of picture is a photograph of a green field, which doesn't make much sense, but it's a confidential client, so I can't really share an awful lot with you. It's site due diligence assessments, so we're basically doing assessments of greenfield sites for a data center client. So they pick a site that they want to build a data center on, and we look at the site from all different aspects, and we assess the risk of that site for them. So we look at things like structural, geotech, blast, planning, and assess the risks for the development that they want to put on the land, and then they decide whether they're going to go ahead or not with purchasing the land. On the right hand side is a image of Dublin, just the Diageo lands. So we did a design for the Diageo new kegging plant, which is the kind of up in the left hand corner here, the little red line there. So it was a new keg racking plant for Diageo in an existing building, so it was a retrofit, and we did that as far as tender stage, but it had to get shelved because of COVID. Obviously the pubs weren't requiring as many kegs as they thought they would, so that was a very interesting kind of design project to work on, a lot different to the site due diligence work that I'm doing. So it's nice to have kind of 2 different things. And then another project which is currently going for planning is the Booterstown Recreational Building, Interpretive Centre and Coastal Meadow. So this was a really nice project we got to work on at planning phase with Grafton Architects. So we did kind of the early stage design and kind of consulting for the client, who is Oakmount. So they have kind of buildings like the Stella Theatre and Dollard & Co. and restaurants and kind of leisure places around Dublin city centre. It was a really interesting structure. Kind of, it's a circular building, you can see here on the left hand side. It has an indoor outdoor pool, sauna, gym, state-of-the-art kind of facility, and a coastal meadow with a bird hide, and an interpretive centre because it's beside the Booterstown Marsh. So there's kind of a biodiversity element in it as well. So that project is currently in for planning and due an outcome at the end of this month, I think. So yeah, that's all the projects that I'm working on and what I'm doing in Arup Dublin. I'll pass it over to John now.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Amy. That was great. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I'm John Smyth. I'm from Clonmel, County Kerry, and I'm working for Arup down in Cork, which I'm usually down there, but we're all working from home at the moment. I studied, as Michael said a bit earlier on, a bachelor's in energy engineering in UCC, and then I also went on to do a master's in sustainable energy engineering in WIT, while at the same time I was working as a junior energy engineer with a company called 3CA, or Three Counties Energy, and down in Kilkenny. And from after my master's and working with them, I joined Arup I came in as a mechanical design engineer, but just as I've been working for the last 2 years, I've more moved into the realm of energy and sustainability consultant with Arup Cork, and I'm actually a PRO, or Public Relations Officer of Engineers Ireland, the Young Engineer Society down in Cork as well. Yeah. So just why the kind of the energy and sustainability thing for me, but and more the consulting side then as well. So I joined ARP as a mechanical design engineer and joined their kind of mechanical design team, but I had a background in energy and sustainability, which is coming up a lot more. You'll see it in all the different aspects, but they wanted to add that into their mechanical side as well. Why I kind of got into that myself is that I was always interested in the buildings around me and how they were kind of made and they were operating. And I was also never very good physically with my hands, and even when there's anything wrong in my house around here, how I'd know in theory maybe what's wrong with it, but physically fixing it was never my strong suit. But some of the benefits I really did like about the idea of working with consultancy is the flexibility between the projects and between the office and the site work. And as Amy pointed out, there's are very good to get you out onto site and to see, especially to see some of the theoretical work that you've been doing, to see how it looks in real life. So as I mentioned earlier, I did that study in college, and that's my kind of background in the sustainable and the energy side. But just a point that I think is important to make is that the experience that I had, especially working, I was lucky that while I was doing my master's, I was able to work 4 days a week as well with a company in an area I was interested in. So I found that a lot more beneficial than the academic stuff that we did. I've also be doing some volunteering work and some social work with the Young Engineers Society, and I'm now their PRO, which has also introduced me to a lot of different people network and some excellent learning opportunities from different people and stuff. So I just found that these things can be a lot more useful than academic learning, even though it's needed. But you can also get contacts, and can distinguish yourself from other students or other people when it comes to interviews and CVs and that kind of thing, because everyone will be coming in with a degree at some point. But just briefly then on what I kind of do now, I tend to do some building energy modeling using a software platform, normally IES or some other format, but we can also end up inside in Revit looking at different plans for plant work and stuff as well. And that's where it comes in a bit more to the mechanical and electrical services and the systems design. So anything inside in the building services, the structure and stuff, that's stuff to Amy Monahan and the facades team and stuff like that. But what they do affects what we end up working on a lot as well. So as I find out to my detriment, I'm not allowed to put a duct through a very important structural beam. So we have to converse with the team a lot. So the communication between the teams and inside the consulting is important. Some of the other stuff I do is, and we're seeing this a lot more, especially in early stage design, is researching the sustainable and renewable energy options, because a lot more people, and because the regs kind of require now, are looking at how they can supply some of their own energy on site from renewable options. So we do a good bit of that, and while also making sure we ensure thermal comfort for the occupants inside through either design and analysis or commissioning post after the design of the building, or when it's actually been constructed. We come back in afterwards to make sure the systems are running correctly, and then getting out to site as well, which is always great to oversee the installation, and the monitoring of these systems is always great as well. Next slide there, Amy. So just a small few of the projects then that I've got to work on in my time with ARP. So in the top right, I think it's appearing, is MSD Brinny. So as I kind of mentioned there about some of the renewables and the offsite kind of energy analysis we've been looking at. So MSD Brinny are one on a bigger scale, rather than just looking directly at a building. We're looking at a larger scale, and they're looking at how they can supply some of the energy that they're using through different renewable means, whether that be solar PV, biomass, whether wind turbines. So we're looking at all these options for them, and coming up with a kind of a decarbonization plan or a phase program for them. So that's some of the work I was doing actually just very recently. One of the older projects, which I got a small bit of the post-commissioning phase, but the design was done, a few years ago by my actual current boss now, is the Lewis Glucksman Gallery. So anyone here from UCC that's on will know that building. And that building actually has a extremely cool heat pump type system that extracts heat from the river which is beside it, and yeah, it takes the heat out and or the cools depending on the summer for heating and cooling of the gallery inside. So that doesn't burn any fossil fuels for heating or use electricity, large electricity chillers for the cooling. So it's a very cool system, and it's sustainable. Down on the bottom left is 2 Albert Quay. So that's actually right beside the Cork Arup office, which is just there, and that's a residential tower block that is just designed. So that I just got accepted for planning permission. I think it was last month. So that's we're going to be moving on to the next phase of that. But my involvement inside in that was building energy modeling. So I was quite heavily involved in the overheating analysis and making sure the system that we're inputting, the new type of heating system that we were inputting, was going to be able to work, supply the residential apartments quite well, and might be more usable and user friendly for the residential units, that people that will be using them, because it's not going to be a commercial client, which is a small bit different for Arup. We haven't a lot of residential projects, so I did work on that. And then on the bottom right is a project I wasn't involved in, but just for CIT students, you might know it then, is the architecture factory and CIT. And I just think the project is very cool. And the fact, and just a very notable thing is we see a lot more about embodied carbon, but it's the circular economy and reusing materials. But it has an open plan kind of design, but they've reused some old shipping containers as the main offices inside, and that's just a different way and a different side of the overall design that was kind of considered and brought in from a very early stage. But that wasn't, we'll say, that comes under the topic of sustainability and maybe the energy inside, but that came from more of a structure or facade, or even the architect team. So the communication and the work between all the different teams at the early stage and its involvement is a big thing that you'll see inside in consultant engineering. So I think that's next slide. I think that mainly covers what I do. I think what we just added here at the end is a couple of links, because Michal, I believe you'll be able to share these slides with people, or even just want the links inside this one. But it's just some of the links to opportunities that we have inside an Arup for graduates especially, and there's also some undergraduate opportunities there as well. And look, Arup do have a good graduate program. I'm currently still in it. It's about 3 years. But you can have a baptism like fire, as Amy's saying, when you get dropped in. But I was quite lucky then at my early stage of I didn't have it was a little bit easier myself. I had different little bits of different projects that I, rather than being thrown straight into one, and it was kind of easy going inside it. But look, there's loads of opportunities inside Arup, and there's a few links there, and they have a great page. And again, our emails are there, so if you do have any questions, you can always follow up with us. I think we can leave questions.
I think that's it, Michal. I think you're leaving questions till the end, so.
Absolutely, we might take the questions at the end together. And fantastic presentations, both of you. I think that was some great information shared there, and really appreciate it. I guess handed the floor over to Rachel.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Michal. I'll share my screen now. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah. Looking good.
Great. So hi everyone. I'm delighted to be here and chat to you all. I was happy when Michal reached out to me to talk a bit about my career so far, and I suppose I'm probably just a few years down the line after both Amy and John, but I am also someone who has worked in Arup, so would echo all their kind words on Arup, but I'll get into that in a second. But firstly, I suppose my name is Rachel Gannon and I'm from Galway. I just want to point out before I go any further, this picture, which is the cover slide of my presentation, and this is actually a job I worked on while I was in Arup. It's the New Ross bypass, and just for a second I wanted to pause on this photo because it just shows the scale of some of the stuff that you do in consulting engineering. Now, I wasn't involved in the actual bridge design, but I was involved in the road design around it. But you can see coming over here, this road, everything underneath the actual river itself. So it just gives an idea of the scale of projects that you're involved in, which is a cool concept. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay, so a bit about me. So currently I'm a digital consultant in Accenture. I moved into Accenture in February of this year. So I got about 5 weeks of actually working in Accenture, and I've been working from home ever since. But I think everyone can echo the working from home situation. Before that, I was a senior engineer and digital coordinator in the ARP Ireland Infrastructure and Advisory Group. So I would have started there in 2015. I would have gone in as a design engineer, and I progressed up as far as senior engineer. I was in the highways team, so I would have been involved in large road schemes, large infrastructure schemes, the drainage of such, and then as I progressed through my career, the design coordination and the project management of those schemes also. Before I moved into Arup, I actually was in a couple of different consultancies. So in 2013, I would have graduated from NUI Galway. During my college career, like many of you, and to echo what Amy said as well, I would have done an internship. So I would have done an internship in a consultancy in Galway called Ryan Hanley. Their focus would be kind of waste, very, very water focused, although they're involved in lots of civil engineering projects, and they do have some structural projects as well. But I would have done a 6-month internship with them after my third year. And when I graduated in 2013, I went straight into Ryan Hanley for a few months before I got a job in a company called URS. So URS was then taken over by AECOM. So I was part of AECOM for 1.5 years, and then I moved into Arup. So that's been my career so far in terms of companies. In 2017, I started a higher diploma in software development. So similar to Jack, I did this part-time while I was working full-time, and I'll echo sorry John, similar to John. And I'll echo what John said, that it was a fantastic opportunity working full-time while studying part-time to see the different opportunities that you can bring to your day-to-day role, and you're constantly looking for opportunities. I would have done a computer science degree in Dublin Business School, and I finished that in 2018. Just this year I was chartered, so I got my chartership in July of this year, and then last month, might I say, I was a finalist for the Chartered Engineer of the Year, which was an incredible. I was very chuffed with that acknowledgement, and it was a fantastic but competitive final. So I didn't win, but I was definitely a finalist, which I'm very chuffed about. And just a further comment is that I'm actually a member of the Council of Engineers Ireland. I was co-opted onto the council this year also, so I'm an active member there. So that's me so far. There's lots of different consultancies and a few different education places. So just in terms of my civil experience, so I actually noted 2 projects here, but like both John and Amy said, I was involved in lots and lots of different projects while I was in consulting engineering. And there's lots of different projects and lots of different phases that I was part of. So if we look at on the left there's two different photos from the N25 New Ross bypass. Arup would have been involved at construction stage, so we would have worked with BAM as our contractor, which is a great experience, and both designing in the office and being on site, and also the interaction with the contractor and multidisciplinary elements that you would never think of. So you're looking at, when you design a road, what my background would have been very much alignment design. So when you design an alignment, you not only have to consider your actual designing of the alignment to the relevant standards and the relevant contract, but you also have to think about the full project itself. So no more than what John said, where he's trying to put a duct through an important structural beam, you also can't put a road through an important stream, or there's lots of, it's a very, very multidisciplinary process, the design of anything in consulting engineering. And you also then have the working with the contractors. and that's a really interesting, really interesting process, and it's also very beneficial, and you learn so much, because what you don't have maybe in the office is the know-how of something not working, or something just when you dig into the ground, you may find other things there, and you need a rapid turnaround. The other thing I'd like to mention is just the different processes or the different phases in terms of design. So if we look on the right here, this is Cherrywood in South County Dublin, and Cherrywood is an SDZ, which is a strategic development zone. And what I would have seen this come from planning through preliminary design, through design, through construction stage. And you see all the different phases of the designs, as the designs come from a conceptual design through to a preliminary design, through to a detailed design, through to your construction stage design. And you see the design being refined and optimized as you bring it through that long process, all the way as far as your built road, let's say, on the bottom right. And I suppose worth noting that within planning, you also have all those different considerations that are outside the remit of just the design, where you're considering the environmental impacts and the sustainability impacts, like when you're looking at the drainage design, the gullies at the side of the road, maybe there could be something to do with your sustainable urban design systems underneath that, or you could have your bioretention trees. There's just a breadth of multidisciplinary input into these design decisions. And yeah, like I just, in terms of my civil and my consulting experience, like it was so varied. When I look back in terms of Ryan Hanley, I would have been working on designing water mains. So we would have gone out and we would have surveyed the entire of Waterford City to see where the best place for your water mains was, surveying the reservoirs, looking at your high points, your low points, like just incredible experience there. And then when I progressed on to AECOM, I would have been, like Ryan Hanley would have been a smaller consultancy. And then when I progressed on to AECOM, you would have been working on larger projects. So you would have been working with the likes of the Belfast office on the A6, or in with the UK office. And you also would have been working on schemes, even there was one scheme we worked on that was a signage design scheme, and that was really interesting as well, because you look at the different inputs that goes into these strategic projects. And then I suppose when I moved into Arup, then I had loads of experience on the highways team. But I suppose when I did my part-time course, what I decided was that I'd seek out an opportunity to use my digital experience. So I took up the role of digital coordinator, and a part of this role was kind of to influence and encourage digital transformation within our group, because as our industry changes, we're changing too. So previously, what you would have had before AutoCAD, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, you would have had people with pencils and drawing boards, and that changed. From drawing boards and pencils, you went to using AutoCAD, and now we saw the change to models and visualizations, and we're seeing the changes to visual twins or digital twins. And it's funny, like something that highlights this like probably most acutely is what our clients are asking for. So clients are starting to ask for these full BIM models and BIM delivery and your 3D models and your digital twins, and they want models where they can measure the assets and they can maintain their assets, and they can almost use these models to facilitate maintenance and operation. So you can see that movement, and that movement is all under the umbrella, I suppose, of digital transformation. So it was about, the role there was about encouraging that and getting people to look at different emerging technologies that they could use, and looking at processes to see where we could automate, and looking at different tools that would benefit the digital transformation, not only for the company itself, but also for the clients. And you can see that movement, and it's certainly very, very important to keep on top of that and continue to learn. In February 2020, I took up a role in Accenture, and I've been in that role since. It's as a digital consultant in their strategy and consulting group. So I'm part of a team that's delivering, or that's part of web delivery. So we're delivering a platform to a health insurance company, and it's really interesting. And what I've learned in the past 8 months is that, and I suppose which I knew beforehand, was an awful lot of the consulting skills that I gained during my civil career are applicable to consulting within technology and within that digital realm also. When we look at stakeholder management, which is liaising with your clients, looking at the county councils, the local authorities for your planning, different residents, everyone around, like you do that in web delivery and consulting as well. You look at what the business wants, you analyze their requirements, and you translate that into your web page or into the requirements that are involved. I think another thing to point out is like that I may have 7 years experience, but I'm learning every single day, which is really important. And I would encourage you all, as you start your careers and go into your career, that you do continue to learn, because it's really important. And I get a lot from it. I find it very rewarding, and I'm sure I think everyone should do that too. Just I wanted to point out that it's not all kind of work. You may be a consultant, or you may be an engineer as your day job when you work with clients and you work with different projects, but there's also so much more. And I certainly, within Arup, I had some fantastic opportunities to engage with the community, and I continue to do that in Accenture. And I think Amy having to drop off to lecture in TU Dublin is certainly reflective of what I was going to say as well. So some of the opportunities I would have had a chance to do was being a panelist that I wish, doing something like this where I talk to all of you guys, being involved in Engineers Ireland Engineers Week, the Water We Use workshop. I volunteered in Zambia as part of Habitat for Humanity, which was a really interesting experience, and also a very eye-opening experience in terms of engineering design. Another thing I would have done would have been a guest lecturer in UCD, and I also would have represented Ireland at European and international forums across Europe. So it's not just all it's not all deliverables and timelines. There's also some additional stuff that you definitely get the opportunity to do, and that's also very rewarding. That's me, I think, Mihal. I know you had me slotted in for probably a bit longer, but I'm sure I covered enough. I'm sick of myself talking.
I think that's perfect, and I'm going to stop the recording